Hey there, I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. Often random, but always relevant, always real, and practically nothing is off limits. This podcast is for you. Are you ready for this? Let's do it. Welcome back, fellas, to the Contrast Project Lounge, another edition of our live stream. And tonight, as always, I got my good friend as my co-host here, Mr. Jim Alabiso. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Trace. Good to see you, Nancy.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great discussion tonight. We have with us Olympic champion, a gold medalist, Olympic champion, attorney and CEO of Champion Women, Miss Nancy Hogshead. Nancy, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I feel like there needs to be applause.
Would you put? Did you put laugh track or put an applause track in there?
You know, I actually do have an applause track, but I never use it.
Oh.
I do. But a little bit.
It was the way that you did it. Like it was like, and now Nancy Hogshead, right? And it's sort of, anyway. Supposed to be a compliment for you.
Okay. Hey, one of the we just had the Olympics recently, and that's one of the things. So many people, in the country, it's a big deal. Everybody just loves the whole spectacle of it.
Especially this person here.
Oh, yeah. It's a big spectacle for people to watch and for those that are fortunate enough to go there and see it in person, and not just, the whole package, seeing the athletes perform, and Simone Biles, oh my gosh, I was watching her this past time. Yeah. She's incredible. Crazy good. And then you got people, that really go on and on and on about the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies. And this year we had Snoop Dogg and, it's a big deal. But I can't imagine. But I can't imagine for the life of me being one of those athletes and going on to win 3 gold medals like yourself. What was that like?
And a silver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 3 gold and a silver.
One of them was a tie, right?
Yeah, my first event, the first event of the entire Olympics, first day, and we tied down at the 1/100th of a second. It was the first time ever in Olympic history that 2 gold medals were awarded for the same event.
I watched you two hug at the end of that race when you saw the board. I just watched that video a little while ago. That's awesome.
Right.
What a feeling, right?
And it was with American, and it was in America, so 2 Americans right out of the gate. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was, and I just think the Olympics are one of the few things that is such a great unifier. The whole country comes together. The whole world comes together. We all like watching these fantastic performances. I went to Olympic trials this year with all my buddies that I grew up with, and it was our 40th anniversary. And just for all of us to appreciate how our sport has grown and how beautiful the swimmers are, and their underwater game is fabulous. And
I know.
For me, you really get in touch with flow, right? That was the best part of being an athlete, was getting to experience that. I don't think you have to be super elite to feel flow. Like Jim, when you were in the English Channel, I bet you were feeling flow.
I definitely was, because I didn't pay attention to the times.
Oh.
When we do the ocean swims in the morning, at Jack's Beach, swim a mile or 2 up. We definitely get in the flow there.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about,
Yeah. Right. And it feels like you kind of yourself kind of leaves you. And when I watch those athletes, it's not just the swimmers, but, they're all super duper amazing. They're all in flow. You're seeing somebody at the very best of what there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it inspirational. And also, I love it how it gathers people together.
Sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the technical aspects, I suppose, I'm sure, since you've been in, active competition, the methods of training, the regimens that they go through,
Exactly.
a lot of things have changed, and not only swimming, but all the sports, they have just, the training that goes into it is just incredible. I can't imagine.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, that's like a mission, It's,
yeah.
you live it.
So my peers that went into coaching instead of going into law or whatever, they say to us, like, Nancy, you're a generation, like, you swam at the wrong time. Because in my era, it was all about sort of getting all the yardage in and really cranking it out. We swam 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. In the middle of the day, we either lifted weights or ran on alternate days. We trained like between 5 and 6 hours a day. And they don't do that anymore, right?
What do they do now?
Oh, so now they have much more like these intense workouts that are, they swim half as much as we do. But they do things with a lot more, it's not the grinding it out kind that what we had. And they do so much. Oh my God, they're beautiful. The technique of like how they come off the wall.
Right.
We didn't do any of that. Right. We pushed off, right. We had to have a beautiful streamlined position, but it was nothing like.
It's like Michael Phelps's little thing as it's coming off the wall.
All of them.
He could do that for miles, Unbelievable. Right? One time I was down in, that's my dog, by the way. One time I have 2 dogs and a cat that loves to join in on a podcast. I'm a cat lady. So, I was going down to, was it Coral Gables or somewhere around there, Coral Springs. I was going to Nike Swim Miami. It was a race, open water race in Miami. So I stopped off over there because it's Olympic training down there for swimmers. So I got me a lane ticket, and the coach told me to take this side of this lane. And I get in there, and I'm doing my little weenie laps, and back on the other end, and I just pop up take a breather. And who's next to me but Dara Torres? So, of course, my brain is going, oh, man, this is perfect because I can be underwater and watch some of that technique, But this is really how it went. This is me, and this is Dara Torres.
Yeah, right. And
she was like, bam, 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 and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It was great. We did have a nice conversation. We got in a parking lot.
You know what? I mean, that's impressive because you're a swimmer, right? You've been swimming these long distance swims for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact that when I was pregnant, I was swimming over at the Y here in Jacksonville, Florida. And I would go over, in swimming, we've got these protocols, and I would go over into the fast lane right at the far end. And like these guys would look up at me like, do you not know how this works? I have this big old belly. Then like after I'd swim, 50 or 100, they'd be like, hi, so you swim.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there was a woman that, because I used to go to a Good Shepherd pool,
Yeah. That's where I do yoga. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still go once in a great while. But there was a woman there that was doing like a yoga swim, real slow. When her hand entered the water, to no splashes, nothing. You didn't see anything. It was just gliding through the water. And I just thought, man, how peaceful and how much flow, right? She gets out of the water she's out there 8 months ready to go,
right.
right? Uh, but I
Yeah.
was really appreciating the swim. Really, she was giving baby a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's one of the
So,
few sports that you can do, as much as you want to, and you're not hurting the baby, and, you're not
right.
Right.
injuring yourself either. I had
No.
a hard
Yeah.
time like doing a flip turn towards the end. Like I would just go straight.
Yeah. That's sweet. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you, Tracy.
No,
I know
no,
you had a question there.
yeah, Nancy. Let's get out of the pool for a minute. When you,
Okay.
when you, when you, when you left competitive swimming or competitive sports, and went on to become a civil rights attorney, and now you're the CEO of an organization called Champion Women. Explain to us what Champion Women does.
Sure. So we provide legal advocacy for girls and women in sports. So we focus on 3 areas. One is opportunities, making sure that men and women have equal opportunities to participate.
Right.
If I had to do my career over again, I would have spent less time making sure that women had the right to equality, and I would have spent more time actually. So that's what I'm doing now. We just filed 101 complaints with the Department of Education, Florida State, FAMU, University of Miami, University of South Florida, are all schools that we filed complaints against. We took the top 50 schools where there were the gaps between men and women, and then we took the top 50 schools that on scholarship dollars, and so that's how we ended up doing it. But hopefully we'll see some substantial progress here with. But we've got. I don't know if you saw my Instagram / Facebook feed, but we got all these graphics now, and we showed that University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which has, $130 some million budget. They need to add 350 women to their athletic department. I mean,
Wow.
they need to increase it by about 80%. They need to add 80% more than what they already have. And then in scholarship dollars, they're denying women $5.3 million in athletic scholarships every year.
So when you say they need to do this much, what drives that number?
Oh, well, so because the sports are formally sex segregated, then it's really easy to measure, right? Like how many men are competing, or do you have opportunities for how many women, right? So you look at how many women, and then I mean, this is kind of in the weeds, but if you want to go there, but stop me if it's annoying.
Go right ahead.
Schools can show that they are giving women enough opportunities one of 3 ways. The first way is called proportionality, which is if your student body's 50-50 and your student athletes are 50-50, then you're good to you're good to go. And then the second way is if a school can show that it has this history of continuous improvement for girls and women in sports. In other words, if the graph goes up, continuously, it's good to go, even if the men's graph grows twice as fast. So that's a way to comply. And the third way is if you can show that you're meeting the interests and abilities of the student athletes on campus. In other words, nobody's knocking at the door. You don't have any unmet needs. Well, given that only out of all the high school athletes, not including club sports, travel teams, the Olympic movement, not including any of those, just high school athletes, it's about 6% of high school athletes have the opportunity to play in college. So when you add in the Olympic movement, you're down to like 2 or 3% of high school age athlete actually, right? So it's hard for schools to say that they're meeting the interests and abilities just because there is so much demand for sport for both men and women. There's enormous demand.
So the domino effect, though, then, when men have more scholarship opportunities.
Right.
So the domino effect there then is there are some women that won't be able to go to college
Right.
or the
Right.
college they want to go,
Right.
which might lead to I'm not going to be able to get the job I want to get, which leads to a lower income. Bam,
So,
bam, bam, bam,
Jim,
bam.
yes, no. So participating in sports, we know, is a life-changing deal. 94% of all C-suite women, which means like CEO, CFO, right? The top level of executives were athletes. And it's like 60% of them were athletes in college. It is a game changer for somebody's income, for somebody's professional life, for somebody's their
Confidence?
health for the rest of their life, like
Right.
everything
Sure.
from osteoporosis to heart disease and cancer. And
Sure.
it's a total life changer, and people are being denied. Women are being denied because they're women. 350 every single year at University of North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible. So
That's something else.
we gotta have some major changes. Yeah.
So what
Oh, okay.
motivates? Oh, go ahead. If you have more,
Oh,
I was just going to say, what most motivates the university to make those changes?
That is a great question. Excellent. And the answer is that the only people that have standing to be able to bring a lawsuit are 18 to 22-year-olds. You're expecting 18 to 22-year-olds to make it equal for everybody else coming back behind them. But I don't know about you, but I was madly in love with Duke. I loved my university. I can't imagine bringing a lawsuit against them, but that is what has to happen because the NCAA used to do the job of making sure that if you want to be a member of particularly Division I, you had to show that you were complying or you were moving towards compliance. And one of the first things that the former CEO of the NCAA did was he stopped this process that used to be called certification. And he was like, he just so nobody's doing it, right? So the NCAA is not doing it. Hopefully, the General Accounting Office just came out with a report in April of this past year saying that the OCR, the Office for Civil Rights, which is sort of like the police for the Department of Education, that it wasn't doing its job when it came to Title IX and when it came to sex discrimination in college sport or in sports in general, high school.
Right.
So, when people come to me, I can put them with a lawyer who will get the whole shebang done, not just, one set of bleachers, right, or one locker room. I torture research assistants here at Champion Women. And one of the things that I have them do is I have them gather all these pictures of like, here's what the men's facilities look like and here's what the women's facilities look like. I mean, if you wanted to train women that they are second-class citizens, this is how you would do it. So, we're doing everything we can to try to change that situation.
That's fantastic.
Okay,
Now,
now I promise I won't talk that long on all these subjects. But our second
As long as you like.
Yeah,
big
go ahead.
subject is we dealing with sexual harassment and abuse in sport. Nice bubbles. Wait, did I do that? Did I do something with my hands that made that happen?
That wasn't me.
That was crazy.
Tracy did that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
All right.
So we work on the issue of sexual abuse in sports. So coaches and administrators have a ton of power over athletes. When you think that the great, amazing Allie Reisman didn't feel that she could ask for soap at the Olympic Training Center because she didn't want to be seen as a complainer. And so if you complained, then you were very unlikely to make the Olympic team. So there's a great Netflix special called Athlete A that I recommend everybody watch. And Athlete A is Maggie Nichols. Maggie Nichols is the first person to report Larry Nassar. And, I think close to 500 victims actually came forward.
Wow.
The scale this guy was able to get to was unbelievable. But frankly, it was no different. I mean, it was different because it was a doctor. But what we usually was happening is that the coach sort of manipulates the athlete. They make them think that they're in love, or they make them, if you do this, you'll be great, or right, the same
All
way
that
that
kind of grooming stuff.
Yeah.
exactly right that the Catholic Church or
Sure.
every religion actually, and Boy Scouts,
Right.
so many different organizations, what they've had to do. So I don't know if you saw at soccer, professional soccer, they just fired half of their coaches.
Wow.
Half. So
For that reason?
for that reason, because they were and all of those women, they're all over age. But I've said this so many times that my phone fills in the blank like right away. But coaches shall not have a romantic or sexual relationship with the athletes they coach, regardless of age or consent. It's a bright line rule, and we need to be teaching 7-year-olds about that. So we have a one-pager on our website, and we've gotten 2 major pieces of federal legislation passed. The first one protects athletes. It created the United States Center for Safe Sport, and it gave the Olympic movement, including the national governing bodies, a legal duty to protect athletes from physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Then the second piece of legislation gives athletes power. If they can't say no, then they're going to be abused.
Right.
100%. Yeah. They have to have that ability to object. So then the third thing that we do is we're trying to make sure that women's sport stays for female. That women's sports are for the unique biology and the unique characteristics of being female. We want to give half the population equal opportunity to be able to participate.
Tracy,
right. That's where
I think Nancy just
she segued into my next segment.
Unveil the elephant.
So, yeah, I was going to go right. That's where I was going to go. That's where I was going to go, Nancy.
Yeah, I know you were.
You've been very vocal. You've been an advocate against allowing transgender women to compete in women's sports categories without restrictions. And I know that there are certain restrictions. I've looked at them today when I was looking at the case of Leah Thomas. I know what those restrictions came up and how she lost her lawsuit with the Olympic Committee, so she was unable to compete there. And you were going right there with
hold on, but I do want to say I want her to compete. I want there to be a space for all transgender athletes, but not in the women's category.
Right.
There are lots of other options.
Yeah,
the most obvious one is to be able to compete in their sex category.
Right. The Olympics actually just started an open category, but nobody applied for it. There were no athletes applied for it. They did open a category from what I understand, but they got no athletes that signed up to compete. So that
was
happened.
That like a protest?
I don't know what it was.
In the sense that they didn't sign up, or there was just no interest, or they were like, I'm not doing it.
No, they want to be able to compete in the women's category. Now, notice that women who don't identify as being women, but biological women, like Nikki Hiltz, who identifies as non-binary, she competes in the women's category. She competes according to her sex category. For every category in all of sports, categories of like a lot of sports have weight classes, or they have ability, like in the Paralympics, they have, they'll tell you what their ability category is. They for age categories, in order to be in the Olympics, you have to be 16 years old. You cannot be 15 and 350 days, right? You have to be 16. So they're very objective, measurable criteria. Same thing
Right.
with drug testing.
Right.
There's
Right.
objective, measurable criteria, but you
See, I
know,
like your point about like the boxing thing. They have weight classes, right? Because they put people together by physicality,
yeah.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
right?
by weight. So you would never say like
Uh-huh.
Sugar Ray Leonard was inferior
Right. Yeah.
to
So
Muhammad
sure,
Ali, or right?
but that's like a physical thing. I weigh
Objective.
heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so and then based on what I'm hearing you saying is like it's the same with what sex you are.
Correct.
So
Well,
so we can
and one thing I
use it
noticed
even
too. Well, I
apparently
was reading.
competition.
Yeah, and I was reading earlier too, which brought up, when I was looking at Leah Thomas's case. I know that World
Yeah.
Aquatics had set a rule about the transgender. They would be able to compete had they transitioned before the age of 12 or not gone through male puberty.
Correct. Yeah.
The
As long as
first
they don't go through enough puberty.
right. But the age of
So and I like so
or the
that
age of 12. So and that's where Leah Thomas, she argued that was that was a blanket discrimination because who in the heck transitioned before they're 12?
well, I mean, so all sports categories discriminate.
Yeah.
So weight categories discriminate against
Yeah.
heavier athletes. Age categories, like Jim, do you compete in age category? Are you masters? Right.
Yeah, like
So
we do open water swims, whether they're masters or not. It's
yeah.
all done by age groups.
Yeah.
So right. So and like people usually get really psyched about like I just moved into the 60-year-old category because it's easier, right, than the
Yeah.
55-year-old category. So all weight. So the way that sport gets inclusion, the way that they get diversity, is through creating categories. Like
Sure.
that's how you get inclusion. You don't
Sure.
just say, however somebody feels about their weight, they get to compete in a lower weight class, or however somebody identifies as their age, that what their chronological age is what governs. So that is how right? We tend to think, oh, those two things are mutually exclusive. There are also people who say, well, we shouldn't use sex as a category. We should use something else. But there is no other way to do it that, again, gives women half the opportunities. There is no height or weight, or in weightlifting at the lowest weight classes, men lift 30% more. 30% is like, in swimming, men are between 10 and 12% faster, and running as well. But in weightlifting, 30%. And then as the weights go up, the gap between men and women grows and grows. So it's like they're 80% stronger in the highest weight classes. So there's just no way to slice and dice a person in a way that would accomplish what we want to accomplish in sport.
Right. And
Trace, you remember when?
Yeah.
Go ahead. So
No, I was going to say that
all
was
yours.
we were just getting started on the top of the topic, and I know that there's several different specific points where Nancy has been involved in this advocacy of hers. Effort. There it is.
Sure.
And the first one, of course, like you were starting to say, the biological advantage, and I think we already went over that. And then there's the fairness and competition.
Yeah, again, so I again, if you go onto my Instagram page, I've got a video up of runners. Did you see that one? So it's at the World Championships a couple of years ago. When they have mixed gender relay races. So the Poland team swam. Listen to me. Ran the men first, and then the women. So you've got the woman who's ranked 9th in the world, and then the men, in the United States, And it's like when you watch the video, it's like the woman from Poland who's ninth in the world, she's standing still. I mean, it's just, it just goes right by. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to have fairness. I mean,
Sure.
I competed in a time of profound unfairness with the East Germans that were taking steroids.
Right.
But as much of an unfairness as that was, it's a multiplier factor when it comes to the sex differences. In other words, there's no drug that a female can take that will give them the same advantage that male puberty gives men.
Mhm.
So that right, it's an exponential difference between those two. So for all those reasons, we've got to do what we can to protect women's sports and women's opportunities. I've been a women's sports advocate all my life. I'm a liberal Democrat, and I really want the best for transgender people. And I have nothing, like if I saw them in a store or banking or family law or contract law, any other place, no problem.
Right.
But when it comes to sports, it's
Well,
just
I thought the fact that Dara Torres was faster than me was not fair. Do you remember, Tracy, when we had Kristen Keene on the show?
Oh,
You know
yeah.
Kristen Keene?
I do.
Our race
Yeah,
writer?
yeah.
Okay. I thought you did. So, I don't know how she ended up coming in the water, but she kind of wanted to learn how to do open water swimming. So we go out to Atlantic Beach. She told the story when we had her on, and we swim the sunrise from Atlantic Beach, do a mile or so, and she commented during the interview. She says, "Do you remember, Jim, how I had to stay really close to you because I was scared, and I was crawling. I was just like this, right?" And that was, God knows, 10, 12, 14 years ago. There's no way I could catch up with her anymore.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
She's just like, bam.
Yeah. Right.
She's a rocket ship now.
It's right. Technique, baby.
And I'm assuming, Jim, she's at least 20 years younger than you.
Yeah, well, that's true. I think it's actually more.
A different age category.
Yeah.
That's true.
Different group right there.
Sure. I did compete at bowls once. Because you're in me and Diego de los Rios. I don't know if you ever knew him or not.
Yeah.
But he and I signed up for this race, and we were in the 19 and older group, right? And so all the rest of the competitors, we were the only two old guys there, older guys there, because a while back ago. And so what we realized is that all we did was energize those kids because they didn't want some old man getting across the pool faster than them. I came within a half a second of one guy, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. They're amazing swimmers over there.
Oh my God!
Nancy, I know we covered a couple of things on this, but and policy changes and that kind of thing, but proposed solutions, like inclusion of transgenders in different types of events, alternative approaches that you had mentioned in some of the stuff I read. Competing, being able to compete in men's categories, exhibition races where the results don't actually count.
Well, we used to think, so I'm part of a group, Champion Women joined, it's called the Women's Sports Policy Working Group. And I would be remiss if I did not say how badly that Champion Women needs money to be able to do all the things that we do, for me to be able to have, the staff and everything. So it's Martina Navratilova, Donna DeVerona, who's on the board of the Olympic Committee, other people that you wouldn't know their name, but in my world, Donna Lopiano and Mariah Burton Nelson are, rock stars. we had Tracy Sunland, who he runs the interscholastic track and field events, right? So we started getting together. We thought, and I thought, that if somebody went on to cross-sex hormones, so men were on estrogen, they reduced their testosterone, that you
Right.
could make it fair. So if you look at some of the earlier stuff that we wrote, that is what we were writing. It turns out we were dead wrong. Since 2021, the science that's come out, it has been phenomenal, showing that men do, when they get off testosterone, if men are have cancer or something like that, a lot of times they've got to get rid of the testosterone. They do lose some strength, but not much. It's like 2 or 3%, which I can imagine feels like a lot. I mean, right? If you could be 2 or 3% faster or stronger, right? It would feel like a lot, but it's not that 10, 12%.
Right.
So we were wrong. We said we were wrong. And then the more that we've gotten into it, the more, Tracy, that we've recognized how important that women's bodies be honored for what they are. We have different acute angle, like the reason why women get so many more knee injuries is because the angle, for our hips to be able to give birth. There's so many differences between men and women, and like we're perfect, and you're perfect, but very different.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
That's yeah. Now, there's that there, just like you said, that we're both perfect, but we're different. But and when we're talking about transgender athletes, whether they be male or female, but mostly we're talking about transgender females, balancing the inclusion and fairness, while acknowledging, the discrimination faced in transgenders. What I'm saying is, when transgender,
100%.
when they say, the discrimination that they're facing, and they feel that way. But again, you've said that there has to be restrictions in order for them to compete with biological females or those assigned at birth. Maintains that it should not come at the expense of fairness in women's sports. Correct.
Right. And I would say that by trying to go into women's spaces and women's sports, it's actually hurt the transgender cause. If they had said, like, we're gonna honor biology, and we're gonna not go, let's say, into women's changing spaces and go watch the 8-year-olds change, and all these laws that we have about flashing, or in what do you call it when somebody oogles, right? When they're voyeurism, right?
Right.
Right. So we have all these laws on it, and suddenly it's okay for somebody who has a male body to be in these spaces. I really think that they hurt the cause by trying to go too far. In other words, if you want somebody to be kind and nice when they're in the grocery store with a transgender person, or a neighbor, or anything else, that to respect women's boundaries. We need safety. We need it. Again, I think that the whole idea that trans women are women. Have you ever heard that slogan?
Sure.
That's all it is. It's just a slogan. It's not truth. It's not fact. It's definitely not fact. And by trying to go that far, then you're hurting the overall cause.
So just could you devil's advocate yourself?
Sure,
and
go.
Tell us what's the other side of the story. So, in other words, what's the opposing view?
Oh, the opposing view is that the trans women are women, and that therefore they should be able to get.
I'm talking about the reasoning behind it, why they think it's fair to everybody, or.
So that's a great question. Like, I've been kind of like looking at, so when doctors started telling people that suffered from gender dysphoria, when they started, offering all these surgeries and hormones and everything, that they then told them, like, we can actually make you a woman. We can change your driver's license and passport and birth certificate. And which sort of led into this whole ideology that, in my mind, it actually cements gender stereotypes. So there are plenty of very masculine, like me, very masculine women. There are very feminine men, and everything in between. And if somebody is a masculine woman, that does not make them a man. It makes them, if they're a butch lesbian, or if they really like sports and they really don't like dolls. Like that's one of the beauties of women's
Sure.
sports, is that it kind of gives elbow room for what it means to be female. That you don't have to fit into these narrow stereotypes to be a man or a woman, that you can be who you are, right? That you big old guys up there that can,
Always right.
be loving and nurturing, and, take care of babies, and, enjoy, whatever, cooking and gardening, and right. And that doesn't make you less of a man when you're doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if you go onto Champion Women's website, we have one of our policies has to do with why the women's changing spaces should remain for women. And first of all, safety. Like, females are really good at being able to clock whether or not somebody's male or female from a really long distance away. We had to learn that in order to be safe.
My sister is a lesbian, and she doesn't mind me saying that. She'll tell you real quick. Like, I go out with her all the time. When she comes to visit, we'll go, we go camping and all that stuff. And she said she'll see somebody walk by and she goes, "Up, my gaydar went off."
Right.
She does.
Yeah. No. And what we're learning is that if you leave kids alone and you don't transition them and don't give them hormones, or don't pause puberty or surgery or anything else, they usually turn into be gay, whether male or female. They're either, lesbians or gay men. And not all, certainly, but right, just leave them alone, but let them. And there's a comment, there's a saying called transing away the gay. So somebody who's young and, 10, 12 years old, and they know something's a little different from them as compared to their peers, or, what their parents want, and almost every gay person that I've met, and I have to say I haven't talked to a lot of gay, like, young people, like, who are like in their 20s, but most of them desperately don't want to be gay. They go through a period and then they get fine with it, and then they, celebrate who they are.
Huh.
And, right, which is phenomenal, right? And, like, in that time period, to tell somebody else, "Oh, you're actually the opposite sex," and they think, "Oh, my life would be so much better if I was the opposite sex." And it's just, not necessarily true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jim,
it seems like
Jim, there you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, there just seems to be a spectrum of ways to look at this. It's like I just put myself in their shoes and say, I feel this way about myself. I'm not arrogant. This is my sincere feeling about myself. I'm trans. I'm a woman. That's how I feel. And I just think it's unfair that I can't join the football team, or, join the women's, because both cases are true. Probably couldn't join the football team, and definitely having a hard time, getting on the Olympic women's thing, right? So it's kind of like, oh, that's so unfair. I'm not going to have this opportunity. So you can feel, maybe empathize a little bit about how they might feel about it. I don't know if there's like a, I don't know if it's as militant as, it sounds.
Right. I would like it if we needed to create other categories, a transgender category in sports, that you would need to have men who identify as transgender and women who identify as transgender, right? Because no matter how many
Yeah.
drugs the two groups take, right? In order for it to be fair, you would have to add two more groups going in there.
Sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just object. I empathize with them, but at the same time, I know what it's like to compete on an unfair playing field and not to have anybody in the next generation to be advocating for me. Nobody was trying to make the system better for me when I was competing against the East German swimmers.
Right.
I'm not trying to compare a
Right,
transgender person with the East Germans, but I'm trying to say that was one type of unfairness, and there's another type of unfairness. And I want to be the person who is advocating on behalf of other women in sports.
Right.
So it's just an extension of who I've been and what I've been doing for my entire life.
Right.
I think sports are game changers for both boys and girls and men and women.
Sure.
And I want people to have opportunities. But in particular, women are missing in college. In high school, they're missing about 2.3 million opportunities. In college, they're missing 225,000 opportunities and $1.1 billion in college scholarship
How do you
dollars.
put a dent in that?
Right.
Well,
It's so deeply ingrained in the culture. Kind of reminds me of when you talk about it like that. Do you see Lessons in Chemistry on Apple?
I did
You
not
should watch that.
Yeah.
Because it's basically about a woman scientist who wasn't allowed to be a scientist or a chemist simply because she was a woman. It's like a limited 8-episode series. It'll knock your socks off. It's really, really good. Definitely, it's on Apple. Definitely.
Yeah, it's called. There's a word for it. It's called sexism.
Yeah. Right.
It's called this idea that it's not. We don't have to invest in women the same way. We don't have to give them the same opportunities and the same scholarship dollars and treat them the same way. Right. That's sexism right there.
Sure.
The idea that a man could come into a women's sport, the idea that we don't have major safeguards in place for sexual abuse, that in sport where so this is going to sound like it's a tangent, but it's really not. So after I finished my swimming career, I promised myself that I would never let myself be so committed again. I would never, because I literally would have, I wouldn't take drugs or cheat or anything, but somebody had said, hey, if you stand on your head for 2 hours a day, I would have stood on my head, right? So there was nothing I wouldn't do for that 24/7. It wasn't just what was going on in practice. It was my entire life, how dedicated that and it was so singular, right? There's no, opportunity for family life and just normal life. And the only time that I broke that promise to myself was when I was pregnant with twins. I gave birth to an 8-pounder and a 7-pounder. And just to keep them in there and keep them safe and, to be alive. And my doctor said all the time, if you did not have 8-liter lungs, I have that's kind of the freakish thing that I have is these lungs. There's no way you could have taken these girls as long as you did. He said most women, we have to deliver the babies just because, that it just sort of outgrows what the mother can do. Anyway, so except for that, right? So to take that hunger that somebody has and to be able to pervert it in a bad way, like with what happens with abuse, sexual abuse in particular, what the amount of emotional abuse or physical abuse that they'll put up with. When you think of, football players and getting head injuries, I always say that a good coach or a coach, any coach, can injure an athlete like that because you're so close to injury all the time because you're really so if you don't have the ability to say no, and you know what that is called? When you don't put up any guardrails and you don't protect athletes, that's sexism because it's like 9-1 in terms of girls get abused versus boys. And so, right, you have to predict and prevent, and you've got to have a system that gets abusers out of the system the same way that, religions and et cetera get people out. But basically what we do, what makes Champion Women different from all these other organizations is we don't just rah-rah. What I don't like that other organizations do is they just say, like, women's sports are great, and like, look at this wonderful thing that happened, and look at this great thing, and yay, and right. And I think there's a role for that, but that's not what Champion Women does. What we do is we go right up, we knock on the door of the university at Florida State University and said, you're intentionally discriminating against women. And here's what the law is. Here's what the facts are. That's all there is in a court of law is facts and law, and you lose. And you need to make that change for right. So we do that direct confrontation, and other organizations are not willing to do that.
Well, I know that there's. I know
it's
that
all
there's.
about power.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of female athletes that would really appreciate the work that you do. Hey, Jim, you got any closing thoughts for us?
Well, it's nice to hear Nancy talk in person about her stuff. And before, we went on, I was watching some of the videos, your competition videos, and
fun
and being
stuff.
that I haven't been able to swim since that surgery, I'm kind of like watching those things. It's just like dangling bait in front of my face. So the other thing, the thing is, I'm just kind of recognizing that that's going to be, there's so many issues to solve, right? The whole scholarship thing, the whole fairness thing, but then, there's this, the transgender thing, and that's really hard to address because there's just so many opinions out there and so many, different shades of the issue that, it's like it's going to be a while before anybody, I think, can get settled and make this culture change or not make this culture change, But I feel for the people that are sincerely feel lost, that they can't compete. And I feel for the women athletes that find it, and well, it is unfair, not just find it unfair, but it's unfair.
So I agree with everything you just said, and thank you for the nice kudos. And I honestly feel the same thing when I watch really good sports, not just swimming, but really great sports.
There's only one great sport. It's called swimming.
So my brother was a rower, and we had a joke all the time that we would fight over which sport was harder. Was it crew or was it swimming?
Yeah.
The answer is swimming.
Yeah.
But anyway, but in that, nobody's trying to keep transgender athletes from being able to compete. We just want them to compete in the category that they belong in. Yeah. And if they want to create other categories, when you think how hard women had to work to create the women's category and to have the women in the Olympics and have equality in the Olympics, like that is decades and decades of work by so many people. And right, so if they want to create another category, right on, I'm 1,000% supportive. But we worked hard to create our category. We've got all the science and all the law and all the reasoning as to why women's sports stay for females.
I think on the social side of all this, the word that all of this circles around is whether or not it's true. I believe it's true. Is discrimination. And the thing is that if you look the word up, it's not a negative word. Tracy has discriminating taste in glasses. Right? I go to the Publix and I look at 10 different kinds of Jiffy peanut butter, organic, not organic, chunky, monkey, or whatever, with marshmallow. And I make a choice, right? And so I have discriminating taste in terms of, But, so the thing is, it's like, I don't think there's like, and so when you hear the news blow all this up into something it might not be, I remember when the race riots in Miami, and there was a fire in Miami, and I was living there at the time, and you see this fire taking over these buildings right, but all it is a camera stuck in the back of an alley with a CU on the fire. And I looked on the Exxon spill, and I saw that working on that, that type of thing, right? So we always get in the news an exaggerated picture, but these people that are trans community, they have feelings.
100%. But I would say, if I can interrupt, is that their efforts to go into women's sports and women's spaces, that it hurts the overall cause in that you're giving license to true bigots. I am not a bigot. I am not trying to restrict
Well, that was my point. This doesn't mean you're a bigot. It means you're discriminating by age group. You're discriminating by weight class. You're discriminating by sex.
Ability and by sex. Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was my point. Absolutely.
Well,
How about you there, Tracy?
I'm very discriminating about my glasses.
Okay. Exactly. That's Tracy's closing thought.
Yeah. Guys, we had a wonderful discussion tonight. Powerful discussion. I like having these in-depth things. And as always, Jim, whenever we have one of these shows with a fantastic guest like Nancy, we always walk away feeling good.
Yeah, that's true.
Thanks, y'all.
Very true.
Thanks, y'all. Okay, group hugs. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask, or if I didn't tell all your listeners and everybody, we honestly need money. So go on to championwomen.org. Oh, that's so nice, Tracy. Go on to championwomen.org, and my research assistants work for only $15 an hour. And we have them doing great work. Yeah, exactly. But all of this, it really does take money. And if you think sports are important for girls and women, then we're the organization to give to.
There you go. So you've got yourself a donate button on your website, right?
Yes, we do.
There you go.
Of course, yeah.
There you go.
Maybe we can put a link also on the video when you post it up on YouTube and the channel.
When the show. When I finish the edits, it all goes up on YouTube. Should be tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Great.
Nancy,
can't wait to see it.
Nancy, Jim, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Tracy. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Well, that's a wrap. Another fantastic episode of the podcast. You can find us on all the social media platforms, wherever you surf, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, wherever. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you're streaming audio for the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast programs. In the meantime, I like to tell everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time. Peace.